seen in Vietnam.
My mother always just told us, he died in the water, there's nothing to know. And so that opened up all kinds of questions. We finally feel like we are grieving, that we are finally acknowledging this loss that we had.
Mission POW-MIA works with both governments, serving as a bridge between U.S. and Vietnamese agencies searching for those still missing.
Vietnam, for the last 40 years, has assisted in the recovery of missing Americans. And when we learned that the number of Vietnamese martyrs that were still unaccounted for, we wanted to do something that we could to help the Vietnamese people. And I think that as long as we are able to reciprocate that with each other, that will advance the mission further for both sides.
Its volunteers also research U.S. archives and interview veterans, passing new leads to Vietnamese authorities. Some of the clues have been sitting in veterans' homes for decades. Through Operation Heart, retired U.S. Marine Colonel Bob Roman is returning wartime artifacts he has kept for more than 50 years. They include a map marking the burial site of 3 Vietnamese soldiers, coins and medals, and a letter he wrote, dedicated to the mothers of Vietnam. For Lori, the experience also offered a new perspective on loss.
It seems that the people of Vietnam are so much more open to moving on, but also respectfully understanding everybody's sorrow, which we're trying to do too when we come to a place like this. We understand that the sorrow is great on both sides.
So, in your opinion, what is the significance of returning these artifacts?
He had these items for a very, very long time. And I think with a lot of these veterans, they hold on to a lot of pain through the years. And they don't talk about the war, some of them, until they get older. They're ready to let it go. He's ready to let it go. And for him to hand those over to On, and to return them, I mean, it was like, you know, it was as a relief for him.
So when we go to veterans organizations and events around the country and speak to large audiences, small audiences, and we're always saying, you know, we're involved in this, and people come forward and say, yes, I have some things, would you like to look at it? And there's a lot of artifacts that are there, and not everyone is willing to share them, but many people, as Julie said, are at a time now when this is something that brings sort of their life full circle.
Yes. Yeah, but when Colonel Norman reaches out from Atlanta to return war trophies after half a century, what does that tell us about the psychological healing process for veterans? I think you sort of answered.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this. I mean, it takes a long time, right? And, you know, it's decades after, it's now 60 years since these artifacts were captured, taken back, right? So, you know, we know that healing and reconciliation are not easy, quick processes. It takes an individual a lifetime, and it takes our countries that much time or longer, right? So when we talk about peace, it's not just when the war ends. It's a long-term process. We still need to work on building peace in ourselves and our communities, between our countries. And I mean, it's more important now in the world than ever. We see how much suffering and work and healing have happened between the U.S. and Vietnam after this war. And we know that every new war, you know, creates these needs into the future. So what do you think?
What if you could travel back in time to a battlefield during the war, through photographs taken that very day? That's exactly what Project Sigma hopes to do, using war wartime maps, veterans accounts, and aerial imagery to search for those still missing from the conflict.
Back home, we do research in the National Archives, and we meet with military units and veteran organizations to ask them about potential locations of mass graves for Vietnamese soldiers.
One lead can begin with a veteran's memory of a possible burial site. The challenge is proving whether it's still there.
6 days I began research, saw the map, and I thought that was a very specific location. Someone's very detailed memory of that just doesn't seem to have been built, which gave me a higher amount of confidence that potentially the bodies are still there and they might have been found yet.
We went from that, we get sketches off of from them, and then we can take those sketches and orient them, also orient the others, and then come up with an estimated location where the next grave may be.
In June 2026, the same approach guided investigators to a former U.S. Marine fire base at Con Thi in Quang Tri Province. Their findings will now support further investigation under Vietnam's 500 Days and Nights campaign. Project Zebra now hopes to train volunteers to search thousands of wartime reconnaissance images, helping identify new sites for future investigations.